We usually think of architecture in terms of grand statements, whether in the past or in the present. Yet, for all buildings, an essential part of their character is to be found in their detailing. The details are something that often connects the great architect-designed structures with utilitarian buildings created by artisans or developers' drawing offices. Especially with the march of double glazing over the last few decades and the cult of minimalism of the last 15 years or so, much of this detail is being lost. But there is some record of what is being lost being kept by the Brighton collection. This fascinating assemblage of artefacts is a national study base of architectural detail in England and sometimes beyond over the last 400 years or more. It shows, for example, the evolution of the humble casement window from its wrought iron origins. These windows evolved slowly from the 16th century to the early 19th. They would sometimes include elaborate detailing in the hinges and catches. Curiously, whilst the truly vernacular versions were still being produced several decades into the 1800s, before the end of the century they had been consciously revived by the arts and crafts movement as an archaicism. Whilst many windows in the collection come from simple cottages and stables, some come from more iconic locations, such as this one from the lantern on the top of St Paul's Cathedral. The history of the sash window is also covered, not just with complete windows, but also with several hundred sections cut from windows that were being discarded. These show their structure, illustrating the box in which the counterbalance weights were contained. These boxes could be even more complex for triple sashes, or where, for example, the frame included shutters. By contrast, the workmanship in some could be distinctly rustic where it was hidden from view. A key element in the dating of windows is the sash pulley, over which the cord ran that connected the window sash with its counterbalance. The collection includes many thousands of these, from the earliest made from wood to those with elaborate faceplates. The glazing of windows charts the changing artistic fashions, for example, from the Art Nouveau to Art Deco. Another material used for windows was cast iron, and the museum has a selection of such windows. But it has a much larger collection of steel windows, however. These may not always be the most endearing of objects, but their ubiquity makes them an important aspect of the social history of architecture, and examples such as this one could be delightfully glazed. The handles and catches are also a fascinating study for the specialist, many of them being ornate. The Crittall Company were the best-known manufacturer, and these windows are often known as Crittalls, regardless of who made them. Windows are not the only detail recorded, however, and there is a collection of doors which shows different types through the ages. The quality of detailing can often be lost behind generations of paint. On some samples this paint has been removed, and the quality of the original workmanship is revealed. Staircases are another area that is represented with a selection of baluster sections and newel posts. The newel posts nicely show the way that essentially similar approaches can be interpreted in different ways, such as in the coil motif at the end of many handrails, so reminiscent of a Danish pastry. These two interwar Art Deco newel posts, both of which can be described as domes on stepped drums with concave chamfers on the shoulders of the post, can still look rather different in practice. Not forgetting the practical questions of drainage, the collection includes a useful display of rainwater heads, also called hoppers. For keeping warm as well as dry, there is also an illustration of the history of cast iron fireplaces. But the museum is not just about the often pretty pieces in the gallery. It is underpinned by a store of artefacts which could provide an invaluable resource for academic study. The collection also provides teaching sessions for a variety of audiences, from continuing professional development sessions for practitioners in planning, conservation and construction, to talks for interested members of the public.
This is a casement window removed from the lantern of St Paul's Cathedral circa 1976 and found by a surveyor friend of mine on the skip. It's very interesting. It's early 18th century. You can imagine it's, I think, around about 1708, something like that. Renoff, of course, designed St Paul's Cathedral, and this is a typical profile he used in his buildings in the late 17th, early 18th centuries. Basically a square ovolo, which is quarter of a circle, a square ovolo, rather than a Grecian ovolo, which is quarter of an ellipse. So that's basically quarter round. In this example, you've got the interesting detail of the actual moulding being planted on the T-shaped glazing bar. It was a method they used to achieve the mitring or scribing. So it's actually, you can see that that's actually come off. So the verticals are actually planted on, whereas this is formed out of the solid, originally polished oak.
So, how did the collection start? Its origins lie in the passion of its founder, Charles Brooking. His fascination with house numbers as a toddler developed rapidly into being intrigued by the workings of sash windows. By the end of his teens, the burgeoning museum was contained in a series of sheds in his parents' garden. The doors of two of these, still decorated with displays of door handles and finger plates, are exhibited in his current gallery. But to be fully accessible and to work to its full potential as a centre of national excellence for academic research and teaching, it needs long-term accommodation for its display and research collection. The artefacts in the collection have generally come from building sites during refurbishment or demolition. For example, in London, West Sussex and Cambridge. This former school on the coast of East Sussex was demolished in 2011. It proved to be a rich source of artefacts for the collection. Although having been a senior lecturer at the University of Greenwich for 20 years, Charles is well able to get on with the practicalities of rescue. Apart from delineating the technical changes in architectural detail, the collection also illustrates the artistic motifs that have been used. Perhaps the best known and longest running is the sunrise, or is it a sunset? This example is from a 17th century door, but its heyday was in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Less long-lived perhaps, but more delicately expressed, is the flying bird. Which could reach a highly stylised level of simplification. Flowers and garlands have also been pervasive. But perhaps the most bizarre picture in the collection is a window containing a picture of a window, complete with handle and curtains. Perhaps not surprisingly, it was made for a member of the Crittall family. Another motif is the windmill, and in decorative terms its close cousin, the lighthouse. These motifs can occur in combinations: the sun and the windmill, or the bird and the sun. A suitable note, perhaps, to end this tour of the Brooking collection.